Most of the fights on the main cards of UFC events are set up months in advance, giving fans plenty of time to get excited. This is mostly because the UFC champions in these fights are defending their titles against high-profile challengers. Given this information, you might think that these fights would be very close. However, the UFC has put on fights that have surprised fans by being one-sided and not living up to their expectations. Let's look at some title fights that, to everyone's surprise, weren't very competitive. Before this much-anticipated fight even started, news about Jon Jones spread like wildfire through the UFC community because Jones and his trainers caught a robber just hours before the event. Despite this, Jones was already seen as one of the most promising, up-and-coming stars in the UFC's light heavyweight division. Many people thought this fight would be close because Shogun had just won a big fight against Lyoto Machida, in which he knocked him out in the first round. This expectation, however, couldn't have been more wrong. The fight lasted 3 rounds, but Jones beat Rua badly, landing 102 strikes, while Rua only managed 11. Jones also won at grappling, as he was able to pull off 3 of the takedowns he tried. Rua finally went down after getting hit by a series of blows, while he was on his hands and knees. Jones became the youngest UFC champion ever. On this card, Dillashaw and Garbrandt fought again. They had already done so at UFC 217. Last time, Dillashaw knocked out Garbrandt in the second round to win the UFC Bantamweight Championship. Both athletes are known to be heavy hitters and top fighters in the bantamweight division. Plus, they've both won bantamweight titles in the past, so such a one-sided result was very surprising. Even more surprising is that the rematch was a lot like the first one, with Dillashaw winning even more easily than the first time. Dillashaw knocked out his bitter rival in just 4 minutes and 14 seconds of the first round. He did this by using his deadly high hooks to counter Garbrandt's aggressive style. This made Dillashaw's record 17 wins and only 3 losses, and he has kept the title up to the present day. Ronda Rousey was the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion, and she went into the fight with a perfect record. Her opponent, Sarah McMahon, had only fought twice in the UFC, and in her first fight, she beat Sheila Gaff. McMahon came out swinging, hoping to put Rousey behind right away, but the champion knew how to turn the match around and soon had McMahon backed up against the fence.
Ronda's boxing is really advanced, and you see some good shots there.
What followed was a barrage of merciless knee kicks to the body. Soon after Rousey let loose on her opponent, she executed a ruthless knee kick that visibly caused McMahon a world of pain, and the match consequently ended with a TKO decision in Rousey's favor. After only 1 minute and 6 seconds of action in the first round, this happened. Many people thought this would be Rousey's toughest fight to defend her title, but she quickly showed why she was the undisputed champion. Whilst Stipe Miocic went into the fight as the reigning heavyweight champion, Daniel Cormier was looking to make history by becoming a champion in 2 UFC divisions simultaneously, a feat that would certainly be feasible due to Cormier going into the fight as UFC light heavyweight champion. In just over 4.5 minutes of action in the first round, Miocic and Cormier exchanged 24 and 25 significant strikes, respectively. It was a tough fight that took place mostly on the ground. Even though Miocic was taller, Cormier took advantage of the situation to get the upper hand and knocked Miocic to the ground with a hard right hook. Even though the fight was close until the end, Cormier showed UFC fans all over the world why he is often mentioned when people talk about who may be the best fighter in MMA history. Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson came into this fight as the undisputed UFC flyweight champion. He had already defended his title against every other challenger except Cejudo, who he had yet to face. Cejudo, on the other hand, had won his first 4 UFC fights and was on a roll when he went into the title fight.
Cejudo is the real deal. He is an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, and he is a proven winner.
Many people thought Johnson would have a hard time keeping his title, but they were quickly proven wrong. After almost 3 minutes in the first round, Johnson pounded Cejudo with a series of knees, one of which sent the challenger to the ground. Johnson then kept punching Cejudo to end the fight. Johnson landed 35 strikes, but Cejudo only got 8. This shows Johnson's brutal dominance, which has helped him defend his title 11 times. But recently, Cejudo Aldo beat Johnson in a rematch at UFC 227 to take over as the new flyweight champion. This fight was Penn's third time defending his UFC lightweight championship. Penn's opponent, Sanchez, was on a 4-match win streak going into the fight, so he didn't look too bad himself. Many people might say that this fight wasn't so one-sided because it almost went to a draw, but anyone who watched the match, pound for pound, will disagree with them. Starting in round 1, Penn was hammering Sanchez with a series of right hooks, taking him down once with the referee coming close to ending the fight early on. Round 2 was the same, with Sanchez bleeding from his right ear and Penn drawing the first blood. In the first round, Penn hit Sanchez with a number of uppercuts that made the contender's mouth bleed. In the fourth round, there was still a lot of damage. Penn knocked Sanchez out with 2 left hooks and a knee. Finally, in round 5, Penn pushed Sanchez to the breaking point, and with a thunderous kick and a bombardment of uppercuts, brought Sanchez to his knees. The referee finally called a timeout, and the doctor stopped the fight when he saw the deep cut over Sanchez's left eye. The fight was a real bloodbath. Penn, who was the defending champion, beat up his opponent in every round. The fact that Sanchez held out for as long as he did was remarkable, to say the least. Former UFC women's bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey fought current champion Amanda Nunes, who was coming off a 4-fight win streak. This was one of the most anticipated UFC fights in history.
In the blue. Nunes utilizing that reach.
Rousey's need to make a comeback after losing her title to Holly Holm at UFC 193 added to the buzz. People were expecting an all-out war, but what they got was a brutal beating. Nunes knocked Rousey to the ground with only 48 seconds left on the clock, while Nunes came out like a freight train, hitting Rousey with 27 significant strikes. Rousey could hardly catch a break, only managing to strike 7 times. This fight proved that Nunes is the best in the women's bantamweight division, as shown by her 7-fight win streak, 11 career knockout wins, and 6 first-round finishes. There were many reasons why people were looking forward to this fight. Before the fight, the two sides had been angry with each other for a long time. Second, Aldo was the UFC featherweight champion because he had won all of his previous UFC fights. Third, McGregor was one of the most exciting new fighters in the UFC. He had won all 5 of his first fights in the UFC, 4 of which were by knockout or technical knockout. Once the fight got started, UFC fans' high hopes for an epic battle were dashed, and they didn't have much to talk about because the fight only lasted 14 seconds. Aldo threw 2 punches at McGregor in quick succession, but McGregor countered the second punch with a left fist that hit Aldo's face hard and sent him to the ground. The notorious Conor McGregor became the new UFC featherweight champion in an instant, and the Irishman became a well-known name in the UFC world right away. That's all for today, guys. Until next time, cheers!